What if I told you that you could access your energetic ecosystem at any given time and utilize your intuition to live the life you want to and to trust what is meant for you? Well, today's guest is Maxine Friend, an internationally acclaimed psychic channel and metaphysical mentor with over 17 years of experience, who has held a 2-year waitlist and served over 10,000 people worldwide. Maxine's here today to help you understand your own energy, trust your intuition, and realize that your sensitivity was never your weakness. Welcome to Energetically Speaking. All right. Hello, Maxine Friend. Welcome to Energetically Speaking.
Thank you so much for having me, Claire.
I'm so happy you're on here. I'm so excited. So I just went through kind of like a rebrand and changed the podcast name. And when I changed it to Energetically Speaking, I knew immediately, I was like, I have to have Maxine on because you match the vibe of Energetically Speaking so much. So I'm so happy to have you on here.
Well, thank you so much. It's such an honor, and you're such a gifted psychic medium. So I'm honored to be here.
Oh, well, thank you. And you are as well. I mean, you are an internationally, worldwide psychic channel, correct? And you at one point held a wait list for over 2 years. Is that right?
That is correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So walk us through a little bit what it's like to be a psychic channel. I know you have serviced, I think your website said over 10,000 people, which worldwide, which is so interesting and so impressive. So walk us through a little bit, if you can, what it's like to be a psychic channel.
Well, I think that a lot of people are coming back to their energetic gifts. So to start off, I'm a strong believer that we are all intuitive and that we all have gifts from the intuitive spectrum. So that's really important to address. I would say that in this work, there's a lot of self-care involved. You know, when you become sensitive and you're doing work as a psychic medium, a psychic channel, you become more sensitized to sight, hearing, smell, taste. So that can make you an amazing conduit for spiritual energy. However, in everyday waking life, it does also create a deeper sensitization in everyday life. So in turn, that does require a lot of downtime and a lot of self-care. So that would probably be one of the biggest differentiators between that and maybe a regular 9-to-5 job.
Yeah, I've noticed that with the work that I do, and I'm just kind of on the start of my journey. You've been doing this for over 18 years now. So I've noticed how after a reading, I really have to take sometimes a couple of days to really rejuvenate myself and really revamp my energy, because it can drain me if I'm not careful. So how do you protect your energy and work with your energy while you're giving a reading and after you're giving a reading?
That's a really good question. There's a lot of preparation. I would call it more ritual. You know, I work with some mentors that would say you don't even need to prepare when you're in the field of energy, and that is correct. But I really enjoy the ritual of cleansing, saging, grounding, tending to my plants, setting the intention. I love honoring the lands that I work on from the indigenous spectrum and Mother Gaia. I love working from those grounding energy places. And I also love working from a meditative place, to step into a higher frequency of channel before commencing with a client.
Yeah, I definitely have noticed that when I take the time to really cleanse my area and really step into that, I always like to say before every session, whatever comes through, just let it be for the highest good of the person who I'm reading for spirit, for myself, and whatever comes through is just meant for the highest good. So I really love the idea of really taking time to set those intentions and clearing your space and your energy. And I wanted to ask you, because I read a few of the testimonials on your website, and I've been fortunate enough to have a reading from you as well. You bring through such accurate information. I think our first reading, I don't know if I said anything for the first hour, and you brought through so much beautiful information. How do you manage that ability and be able to continue with that reading and manage the pressure of performance? Do you ever struggle with that pressure of performance, or do you just know whatever comes through, I just need to say it? And it's for the highest good.
That's a beautiful question. And I think it's part of the human condition. This work, whether we want it to be or not, is performative. You are auditioning every single time you work with a client, whether that be a repeat client or a brand new client. So there is anxiety that will come in, at least for me. But once you step into a spiritual realm, a higher frequency of energy, you now remove the ego and you step into spirit. And then your job is simply to translate the information that's coming in the form of a download.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So, because I've heard you mention, I've seen it on your website, when we talk about the energetic ecosystem, could you explain to the person listening what the energetic ecosystem means to you and what is their energetic ecosystem?
Well, we all operate from an energetic place. We are made of energy, right? That is scientifically proven. Mm-hmm. And we operate from a place where we carry an auric field. And that auric field, when we are afraid, can be extremely close to our body, or it can reach the level of a football field. So what we attract or bring into our space can create an effect to our energetic signature. So when we're working with energetic ecosystems, we are becoming more sensitized to our environments, how we operate, what frequencies we're operating from. So you become more aware of the system that was already in existence for you, right? We're born intuitive. We're born with this energetic ecosystem. So there's just a beautiful remembering or reminding yourself of what is there energetically and how to work with it.
So how would you, because I've seen and I took the spiritual mentorship from you as well, and I've taken so many aspects of that time with you and really utilized it in my own life, and I use it every single day. We talked about our aura cleansing. How would you tell someone who is listening how they can support themselves, or a tip that they could use every day that could support cleansing their energy that would be beneficial for them?
There are a couple of tips, but we like to keep it really simple for everyday people. Sometimes one of the simplest things you can do is shower after your workday, shower after if you have a disagreement with a partner or with anybody, or if you're just really struggling or feeling sad or depressed or having anxiety, showering, you could use like a sea salt soap or just regular Epsom salts. And all you have to do is set an intention to release all that no longer serves you. Another tip, believe it or not, is cleaning. So the act of cleaning is a form of grounding. So you're actually cleansing your space by cleaning it, but you're also grounding into the earth by the actual act of cleaning. So those are very simple tricks. Let's say a third one, and these are very simplistic that hopefully everybody can incorporate, is drinking a lot of filtered water. And this allows you, because we are conduit beings made up of 90% water, we need to keep ourselves hydrated. And a lot of times we do not. And sometimes even in extreme heat and in places we need electrolytes to add to our water to feel hydrated and to feel like energized and to be the proper conduit to the energy coming in.
That's beautiful. Yeah. That's beautiful. I think that's so helpful, because I know when I had taken the mentorship with you, I didn't realize all that went into keeping your energy clear and clean. And even like wearing white, like you said, it's such a beautiful color, and it's such a bright color that's has a really like healing signature to it. And I love that. I've incorporated white in my house more. I've incorporated so many things, saging, crystals. I love it. And I loved our time together so much. So how can the person listening to this use their energy to live a more purposeful and passionate life? Say the person listening is ready to take that step to living their dream life. How can they use energy in their energetic field to be able to manifest their dream life?
Manifesting. I love that. So I'm a huge, very passionate on lifestyle design, and everyone wants to curate a different design for their life. So it's important to honor what's important to you. It's important to establish what that is, what kind of life you want to build and create for yourself, and then be actually living those components of that design. So that's something that I wholeheartedly believe in. And I think everyone's design is beautiful and it's in its own perfection of what they want that to be. So it's going to be really important as we become more sensitized to energy. We want to clear our field of energy on a regular basis. And we want to also become more sensitized and aware of the information coming in. And sometimes we can mistake anxiety for a mental condition versus we're having precognitive abilities where we feel like we know something is going to happen. So it's also very important when managing your energy to keep a logbook or some kind of book of proof, I like to call it, of when you start to receive energetic impressions, write them down. You can be validated at a later time. So instead of feeling anxiety, depression, or oppressed by feeling like such a sensitive soul, you can empower yourself to live by your own unique design and to truly use your intuitive abilities as a superpower versus making it feel like it creates or depletes your energy field.
That's beautiful. Would you say intuition would be the number one tool to have when you're following your dream, when you're trying to take that leap of faith? Would you say your intuition is your number one tool?
Yes, I would say intuition is a top tool, but you also have to have a huge amount of courage to believe in it. Because when you are starting out, you can have an inkling or a desire to, have a different set of purpose, to want to do something different with your life, but it takes a huge amount of courage to make that transition and change. So I call that bridging, and we have to do it in a way that we can employ safety for ourselves and for our loved ones to build that bridge, to create a deeper sense of purpose and to grow our courage and to encourage ourselves throughout our intuitive journey. So courage plays a very large role in making the change in the first place. And there's a lot of influencers out there touting how simple it is, but in reality, it's not simple to change a career or to step into a relationship or step out. It requires a huge amount of courage to change your energetic field or your reality. So it's important to create compassion, encouragement, and to start believing in your abilities in order to make that change.
Yes, and I read on your website, and also I've heard you mention to me before as well, your psychic abilities really came online, I believe it was after the passing of your mother. How did you have the courage to follow your intuition when your psychic abilities came online for you?
I wouldn't say I had a lot of courage to begin with. I was on my own very young, at 17 years old, and really had to fend for myself. I had student loans. I was pretty much living paycheck to paycheck. So having the courage to move out of, working in tech startup where I had a secure job, paid vacation, bonuses, a nice pay structure, to go into the unknown required a huge amount of bridging on my part to make sure that I was financially secure. There is no parent to save me or to bail me out. I'm completely on my own. And I had a mortgage to pay, so everybody has to employ what measures of safety and bridging that are appropriate for them. So I wouldn't say I was this courageous creature saying, I'm going to go do this work now. I spent 4 years and 7 months working for a digital agency while building my business on the side. So I really admire the men and women that can just jump in feet first, trust their intuition. I, for one, was not that person. I did it very gradually, and I built a long bridge to employ a measure of safety in making that transition.
That's beautiful. And you have built such a successful and so authentic career around your psychic channel, your psychic abilities. I had a reading from you it was incredible. And you have built you have so many clients who trust you so wholeheartedly because you are so authentic and because you are so honest and open with the work that you do. Why do you think people trust you so much? What about your authenticity really makes you stand out above the rest, do you think?
I think being authentic is key, but also being real. You know, we live in this world of AI, illusions, highlight reels. People want reality. They don't want to hear that your life is perfect. They don't want to hear all of that gloss. And that's not reality. And in reality, people struggle. We all struggle. We all have insecurities. We all second guess ourselves. So coming from a baseline of authenticness in your energetic field and in your energetic signature reaches people in a more relatable way. And it's more authentic and also working from a deep place of ethics. You know, working as a psychic channel, a psychic medium, there's no regulation in this work. It's the wild, wild west out there. You can claim to be a psychic and make some money for a while, but you won't have longevity if you are not being ethical, if you're not energetically responsible or holding space in a way that's appropriate for your client.
Well, let me ask you this. Do you feel everyone has psychic abilities, and do you feel everyone should use their psychic abilities?
I absolutely believe that everyone has psychic abilities, and it's more about reactivating that baseline. That energy gets to come back online when you remember who you are on a soul level. So we all have gifts and abilities. It's more about just understanding how your metaphysical algorithm is functioning, and everyone's is a little bit different. So some people, you know, I get sometimes a tingle on my cheek when my spiritual team is nudging me. Some people get a ringing in their ear. You know, there's all kinds of signs and symbols along the way. And it's our job to learn those signs and symbols so they can better guide us through this expression here on Earth.
What are some signs and symbols that you have received that have helped guide you on your path?
I've had some really interesting interactions. One of the first interactions I ever had with a spiritual guide was them speaking out loud in my ear, you know, so we can have that running, you know, voice in our head. And then this disembodied voice came in, and it was during times where it was high stress or high trauma moments where a voice came in and said, "This is happening, you need to get out of here," or said, "You need to help this person." So there was kind of this interventionary clairaudience that came through that is quite jarring when you first experience it. But that would be one of the ways. A pinprick on my cheek since I was a little girl, I felt from one of my master guides, which is to remind me what I'm saying, what I'm doing in that moment, and to be aware that this moment is pertinent. Record the moment. What was the thought you were thinking? It has meaning. Pay attention. Also, if there's a huge amount of anxiety, I know I'm not in the right place, or if I'm spending time with an individual and I have huge stress, or I don't feel very good afterwards, I pay attention. And that's kind of from more of the physical space or expression. So there's all kinds of ways that the body creates signatures or signs depending on how your body expresses itself will be its own algorithm.
So do you feel that the body has its own language to communicate with you? Because I feel my body does that. I feel like I really have to listen to my body, and that's something I talk about a lot, is to listen to what your body says, because I feel like a lot of people don't, and they miss a lot of clear signs, clear answers when they don't listen to their body. So do you feel the body has its own language to communicate and is trying to communicate with you?
Absolutely, and people have different ways that their gifts are expressed. Many people, it's through the physical body, which is connected to the solar plexus. Some people just have a claircognizance, which is just simply knowing. There's no disembodied voice. There's no sensation in the body. It's just a deep knowing that can almost feel like you've been encoded with the knowledge already. It could even be, did someone tell me that? Because it's just, you're so certain of the knowledge. So some people get a funny taste in their mouth, or they can hear something. Some people, again, feel it in their physical body. So there's all kinds of ways that the energy can express itself. And it's our job to decode the signature of what comes up. And that's why it's important to record how the energy is expressing itself through you.
Yeah, that's beautiful. How would you suggest to the person listening, if they asked you, how do I know what to look for? How do I know what clair sign I am? How do I know how I'm experiencing the world? What would you tell them?
One of the simplest ways would be to journal, which could sound a little old-fashioned, especially if you're younger. You could use a voice memo system. You could use AI to record that, whatever is going to work best for you. I'm a huge believer in taking pen to paper to physically put it down, because it's a transmission. And a lot of what I do is also working with automatic writing prior to a session. I focus on the person's name and see what energy comes in prior to the session starting, because a lot of the sessions are long distance or sometimes on the other side of the world. So bring that energy in. So I think recording is going to be key, recording your experiences. And it's not about judging them. It's simply recording and observing, almost from an omniscient point of view would be the best way. Yeah.
Wow. So why should the person who is listening want to better take care of themselves, want to better their energy? Why should they? Why would they want to?
A lot of people with natural creative abilities, or even what's considered in this day and age a neurodiverseness, or have more of an inkling towards a creative field of energy, which we're all creative people, but some people lean in that way more heavily, can start to really feel what we call mental health issues like anxiety. They can be very affected or really trapped in their minds. And it's very important to understand that if you have a sensitive nervous system, you're probably more intuitive. And it's about the discernment between, am I feeling anxiety because something's wrong and my intuition is telling me a story? Or do I have anxiety because of what's going on in my life? And so it's about decoding the differences. And a lot of people who struggle with mental health, who doesn't in this day and age, we have to discern, that running voice in our heads. If that's the voice of our spiritual team, is that the voice of our reasoning, or is that just the monkey mind playing tricks on us and trauma looping? So it's really about translating those transmissions quite literally and knowing the difference. It's also very important to have compassion for where we're at. A lot of us can feel the limitations of this work because it comes from a very abstract place. So it's a gentle unfolding to understand what the work is in spirit, which is an absence of ego, versus when the ego comes into play and we have real fears. So those expressions are all normal and natural, but having compassion and understanding that being a sensitive soul doesn't have to be a horrible experience. It can also bring you gifts.
Yeah. Yeah. That was something I noticed on the beginning of my journey. I was an anxious child. I've had anxiety. I've struggled with anxiety my entire life. And I noticed in the beginning, it was all a jumbled mess. And it really took a lot of time for me. I journaled, I meditated, I did so many practices, and I was able to start to pull apart the different voices. What was anxiety? What were downloads? What were my spirit team, my guides, my loved ones? And so for those listening, and I'll ask if you agree, it really took me. Journaling was a big one for me. I had to write it down, and I had to write down experiences that I was having, even if they didn't make sense in the moment, because I can't tell you how many times I've looked back or on a reading or a journal or a voice note that I left myself. And it makes sense now. And it did not make sense at the time that I had created it.
Yeah, that's an amazing observation. And I always say that there's this larger chessboard at play, and we don't know all the pieces, even the psychics. We're just in this gigantic classroom called Earth. And so we have to sometimes trust in a way that demands a lot of courage. We need to trust that, okay, something happened that I don't completely love, but there's got to be a greater purpose or a reason for that, and not to go into spiritual bypassing, but to get into a place of understanding that there is a larger playbook, and we don't have all of the chapters of that playbook as of yet. So understanding there is a greater architecture at play can help you discern and kind of move through the chapters of life in a more bite-sized, relatable way.
Yeah, I've noticed myself that I had to really start paying attention to the highs and lows of life. I didn't recognize that there was a pattern to it. It just felt like everything was so clustered and jumbled all the time. But once I started to recognize the highs and the lows, it was in those low points that I could finally start saying to myself, there is something I can learn here that will catapult me into a much bigger capacity or a bigger space or more opportunity for growth. I just have to understand what this time is teaching me, what I can learn, and how I can grow from it.
Absolutely. And also, again, just having compassion for ourselves and moving slowly through the experience. There are so many people out in the world experiencing real hardship and challenge. So it's not to minimize that journey or that expression, but we just have to take it into bite-sized pieces and really take a look at your toolbox of what is going to help you navigate this chapter of challenge in your life, and what are the components that will bring you peace. And they can be very simple things like a cup of tea, a walk in nature, petting your pet, your animal. It's different for different people. Breath work, working with a counselor or a shaman or some kind of energy practitioner. So it's going to be different, but it's our job to understand as sensitive souls, what is that energetic toolbox? Let's create a list of things we love to do. So when we become overwhelmed, we have a list of saying, okay, what can I pick from this toolbox that's going to aid me through this experience?
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I'd kick myself if I didn't ask you this. The listener at home who wants a reading from you or from whomever, as a international, so well-known psychic channel, what would you say to the person listening who wants a reading but doesn't know who to trust, which medium to trust, which psychic to trust? How would you help them know what is the right choice for them?
That's a really good question. And especially online now with AI, it can be tricky to navigate. But you do want to look at someone that you're using your own intuition to connect with. So look at their photo. Do you feel drawn to the person? What's their bio? How long have they been in business for? Do you feel connected to the person? Does your body lean towards them or lean away? Do you feel an expansion or a contraction? Do you feel like you already know the person? Do you feel a familiarity or a connection to them? And it's definitely, if you want a psychic reading and you're not sure, wait until you are sure. There's nothing worse than someone who's not giving you permission to read them. So it's important that you feel you're ready and you're in that season and you're willing to make that investment of time and sharing your energy with a practitioner. But it's ironic, but you got to use your own discernment of your own intuition. You can also check and see, like, do they have testimonials? You can look at all that. But again, in the season of AI, some of this may not be real. So you want to discern through your own intuition. Do I feel connected to this person? Do I feel drawn to them? And when the time is right, you will make the appointment. It can't be through the encouragement of others. It really has to come from you. So we got to use our own intuition and also look into what is the person's reputation, how long they've been around for, do you feel drawn to them? You can have people raving about someone. Not everyone is for everyone. So it's important to use your own discernment to decide that.
Yes. And what would you say, because one thing I've noticed about myself, I've also kind of learned this from you, when I give readings, straight from the beginning, I tell the person who I'm reading for, not everything I say will resonate, and that's perfectly fine. And you shouldn't take everything I say as 100% truth. I feel as a psychic channel, you do hold a lot of responsibility, and you can start to look like an authority figure if you're not, careful. People are coming to you for help. So you are the person that's leading in that moment. How do you tell people that I'm still human? I'm not 100% accurate. No psychic channel or medium is. How do you tell the person that, they have all the answers essentially, and to not take everything as truth, even though we are so incredibly accurate?
Yeah. So at the beginning of each session, I guide my client through what they can expect, and then we set an intention and we encode the session that it's really for the client's highest good and healing, and that if something that is being said is not connecting or resonating for you, to throw it away, and that they always have the free will to discern how to move through this expression of life. It's also very important as a psychic medium, as a psychic channel, to understand that you are not the authority. Like Maxine Friend is not the authority here. I am just simply the medium connecting to the authority in spirit. So if someone does not have their ego in check, they may start to feel like they are a counselor, they are a medical practitioner, they are a law enforcement agent. And this is a huge mistake, because we are not. We are simply service people passing on messages in spirit. So the session is always encoded for the client to understand that they have energetic sovereignty, that they are of personal agency, and that no one has any power over them, and that they hold the power and hold the keys to their free will experience and circumstance. So the session's encoded with that for them to feel empowered, and that ultimately it's up to them to make that choice if they want to take the message from spirit or not.
Yeah, energetic sovereignty is a word you've used several times, and it's one I love, because I truly want the person listening to know that whoever you get your reading from, you are the one in charge. You have the right to take the answer if it resonates or if it doesn't. Don't give your power away to the psychic channel, the psychic medium, whoever is giving the reading to you, because they're human too, still. So that is something I love to always mention, and I will repeat it forever and ever. And I think it has a lot to do with ethics too, and integrity as the channel, as the medium.
Absolutely. And sometimes you may want to jump in with a client with a message or a little tidbit of advice. I like to always preface that this is not an intuitive message. This is just a message from Maxine, so people know the difference between this is in spirit, this is not in spirit. And to decode that is very important, because people are not there for you. They're there for your ability to translate the messages from spirit. They don't care what Maxine Friend thinks. They don't care how Maxine Friend lives her life. They just care about how she can go into spirit and decode those messages for them. And we have to stay humble and stay grounded through an expression that takes our energetic signature to very high realms and places when you're in an energetic state of channel. So we want to maintain our integrity through understanding the differences of this is a little sort of tidbit of maybe advice, and also to be so careful to not dispense advice where you are not a practitioner or an experienced person. We are not financial advisors. We are not counselors. We are not therapists. If you are, great. I'm personally not. I do not have that education. We all have the PhD of life, right? Most psychics and counselors, for that matter, have lived a very interesting and colorful life, right? Where they have those baseline experiences, but you want to place those as case study or share a personal experience. You don't tote it as viable knowledge because that's not your place. That is, you do not carry that experience. You can share your personal experience and make sure that you're letting them know that this is a personal experience and this is not an energetic download. So your client knows the difference.
Yes, I think that's such great advice because it really lets them know that, there's a difference here, that this is what I'm getting through, but this is also just some advice human to human, because at the end of the day, we are all human. We all make mistakes, and it's important to know that going in to anything you do. I think it's the people who label themselves more as gurus or really, really authoritative in their like the spiritual world, whatever it may be. I like to stay away from those types of leaders because they can kind of get a cult vibe if you're not careful. So I always like to say everyone is human. Everyone makes mistakes. And if someone claims that they are better or more than human, stay away.
Yes, that's a really good benchmark, Claire, and a great piece of advice, because some people will really start, and we'll start to see this in the psychic space, in even the psychic influencer space, where people now are getting hundreds of thousands of followers, and that, can really activate the ego. And the second the ego is activated, you're no longer in spiritual channel. So that's not to say if you are a spiritual influencer that you're not in integrity, not saying that, but there is a difference, right? If you think you're a big deal, you can start managing your practice in a bit of a different way, so it's important to maintain intuitive authority and to understand you are simply the conduit. You are not a big deal. You are a messenger. That's as simple as that. We don't worship, when FedEx shows up at our door. We're grateful for their services. We're grateful for the package they're giving us. But we are not worshiping at the temple of FedEx, right? So why would we worship at the temple of psychics? It's kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, I love that example because it's so true. It's so true. You don't worship at FedEx for delivering your package. They are simply the conduit. I love that example.
Yeah, we got to just, keep it real. And we're all human. Nobody is perfect in their ethics and the dispensing of information, but it's just our job to be painfully aware and to stay as grounded as possible. And it's just a daily practice, right? We all have an ego. We all have a physical body, right? A meat suit amongst all this beautiful energetic field we carry. So it's just the constant discernment of what is real, what is not real, what is information discerned from spirit, and what is just a dispensing of life experience information or a case study. So we're just constantly discerning between those different places and making sure that our client is aware of the differences. Yeah. Because if you have someone going around saying, this is this way, that's the end of the story, you're now taking your authority and you're abusing it in a form.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. And I think, too, the ego can sound so much, and anxiety can sound so much like your intuition. And it's hard to know the difference because they are very subtle. How can you tell the difference for your own abilities?
Exactly. And it's also another message is whenever you're working with someone who's dispensing fear, would be a little leery of that person who's saying, oh, the false light, or these are not your real guides, and we need to charge you $5,000 to clear that energy. Stay away from those people. They're not there for your highest and greatest good, because if they were, they would clear that energy for you, inclusive of the session itself.
Yes, and I've had a reading with you where you did that for me, and I appreciated it so much because I had a reading similar to that, and I remember telling you I just did not feel good after it, and so you included that in our session, which I was so appreciative of. So I definitely think the person who is listening right now, who's like, I don't know the difference between my ego and my intuition. I don't know how to tell them apart. I would definitely say it takes baby steps to figure it out. You're not going to know. And I sometimes still don't know. Sometimes it's, it's like, was that anxiety? Was that a download? What was that? And I really just had to take time and write it out. I agree when you said pen to paper. I think it's been like scientifically proven that writing is the easiest way to essentially get that energy and those thoughts out and put it on actual physical paper. So that's where I started. I journaled a lot. Like I said, I wrote down all the experiences I was having so I could later validate what was and what wasn't. And that's how I started picking apart what was ego, what wasn't.
That's wonderful. And it's a real data dump to journal and do that stream of consciousness. And it's a wonderful way of removing the monkey mind and knowing and discerning the differences. So, yeah. And there's some beautiful workers out there now that are becoming so much more aware of the differences between someone who's toting a scary message versus someone carrying light. And when we express kindness and compassion throughout our life, this is a really good tool if you're feeling not so great. Just one expression of kindness to another person now allows you to step out of your own shell and express something and do an energetic exchange to someone else that's brightening their day. And that can really put us in a different state rather quickly.
Yeah. Yeah, that's beautiful. Well, we have time for one final question. So last question. You write in your journal 3 things that you would love for future generations to know, and you put it in a time capsule. And in 100 years, they open that time capsule and they find your journal. What were the 3 things that you wrote down to future generations for people who are wanting to take that leap of faith, to follow their dreams, to live a passionate and purposeful life? What would you say your 3 things would be?
I would say you deserve love because you exist. You are always enough, and there's nothing you need to prove. You already are the most incredible, highest, most exquisite expression of love and talents, and all the tools are already there once you are born to be anything you want to be.
That's beautiful. I love that. You already have all the answers inside of you. That you have all the answers inside of you. So, Maxine, thank you so much. I will list all of your social handles in the show notes below. I know you offer spiritual mentorship. Do you still offer spiritual mentorship?
I do, and I actually have a new course coming out all about elevated, energetic self-worth.
Oh, I love that. How could someone find that program, that course?
It's just getting completed. There will be some information on Instagram at Maxine Friend or my website, MaxineFriend.com.
Beautiful. Perfect. Maxine, thank you so much. I hope to have you on again soon. We'll talk soon.
Thank you so much, Claire. And anyone who gets a reading from Claire is just going to have the most amazing experience.
Oh, well, thank you. And same to you. Same to you. So thank you. I just want to say to the person listening to this, thank you so much for listening to Energetically Speaking. It truly means so much to me, and it would mean so much to me if you could leave a review of your favorite part of this show or this episode. I read each and every review. They are so personal to me, and I am so appreciative for each and every one of them. I can't wait to see you on the next episode.